Can everybody see Rabbi Wesibart?
Yes.
Right, good. Okay, so I'd like to welcome you all here in the house and on Zoom, and Rabbi Wesibart is going to speak to us on preparations before and during Shabbos. Thank you.
Yeah, watching a massive clock. 20, yeah, very good. Okay, it's very hard to do this on Zoom. Can you ask questions from there as well?
They can. They have to unmute themselves.
So if you want to ask any questions, feel free to ask, yeah? Okay. Easier here, I think, for people. Any questions, you'll ask over here. So what I forgot, I didn't write the exact heading on this. What was the exact heading? I mean, I've got the idea. What was the...
Yeah. Preparation before and during Shabbos.
Okay, preparation before and during Shabbos. So I was just looking up actually today, the whole idea of keeping Shabbos is very, very special. The Taz says that whoever keeps Shabbos properly, so all his aveiros are forgiven. Now, that's quite a good thing. Not bad, that. I mean, obviously it's talking about with tshuva, but it obviously wipes the slate clean. So it's Shabbos has got a special power that if a person keeps the Shabbos properly, it launders the garment completely. If the person does tshuva, does repentance, but sometimes the garment still is a bit stained. Yeah, it's dirty. This complete wipes it clean. A person keeps Shabbos properly, Mamash keeps it very, very clean. So it's important to know what one has to do on Shabbos. Obviously, one can't expect to do everything right. One learns as one goes on. So there's two things I want to speak about, two little stories I would like to say first of all. One is about the preparation of Shabbos. Unfortunately, I don't have to say for a home, but the Gemara says there that, Reb Shimon bar Yochai and his son Rabbi Elazar were in the cave for a very long time. I think it was 13 years or so, a long time they were in the cave for. When they came out, the Gemara says there that when they came out, as far as I remember, they saw a person running with two hadassim, two nice branches of smelling flowers. And they wanted to find out what it was. And they asked him what it is. And he said he's going to honor the Shabbos. What's he going to do to honor the Shabbos? He wants to bring home two nice smelling things. They were very happy. And they said, look at your people, how great they are, how special they are. And I heard once from Arne Steinman, he said, look, they must see people doing loads of mitzvahs. What was so special about this mitzvah? They saw people running towards the, the holding these two myrtle, these two branches or whatever it was. So he said a fascinating answer. He said, it's true. Let's say someone's wearing tefillin, or let's say, I don't know what, and he lights the Shabbos candles. That's all we have to do. Honoring Shabbos is where we go beyond what we have to do and we honor it. That's very special. These people went out of their way to honor Shabbos. And that's what we take to learn, actually. There's a mitzvah of honoring Shabbos. Honoring Shabbos means, for example, what does one have to do for honoring Shabbos? So one has to prepare the house. Now, a lot is that one should clean up the house, actually, for Shabbos. I'm sure everyone does that. The house should be cleaned. Actually, Chofetz Chaim talks about it. I don't know how often it happened there, but they get rid of all the spider webs. All part of it there. It's all part of the honor of Shabbos that a person makes it like its house looks nice. So this was part of the honor of Shabbos to make sure that one's house is nice. We'll come to more halachas of what else is included. But then they say another very interesting story, which I've heard many times actually. I'm sure you've heard this as well. It's just I wanted to quote it from the actual source, but unfortunately I left the Sefer home. But in the olden times, yeshivas didn't really have places for the boys to sleep. They didn't have yeshivas with dormitories. That wasn't the norm. What happened was normally you used to go to the town wherever the yeshiva was, and the people in the town, they used to put up the bochrim. So they used to stay there. They used to eat in the yeshiva, and they used to sleep in people's houses. So when someone called Listen Kaplan, I think his name was, I can't remember exactly his name, something Kaplan, and he said over that he was once in someone's house. He stayed there. He was a bocher, so he stayed in someone's house. And he remembers one particular day he was late on Friday morning. He got up late, and while he was there, he heard the wife telling the husband, "Moshe, make sure you come home in time." And it was very early in the morning still, but I mean, he said to him, keep saying to him, "Moshe, make sure you come home on time." And it happened a few times. He was a bit surprised. Anyway, the husband went out, and then he went to yeshiva. When he came back to yeshiva, he said to this woman, well, how come you were so fussy about telling your husband to come back and Moshe to come back? Why were you so fussy about this? So he said, the interesting thing is, you don't know our story. Our story is a famous story. So she said, I don't know, what's your story? So he said, I'll tell you our story. We were married for many, many years, and unfortunately we had no children. So we went to the doctors here in town, and they couldn't find out what was wrong. They didn't know what was wrong. I said, eventually, Baruch Hashem, I had a child. One child, and we named him Beryl. That was his child, Beryl. And this Beryl grew up to be a lovely boy. Promised the apple of our eyes, everything did right. When he was about 7 or 8, he had difficulty in breathing. We didn't know what to do. So we took him from one place to the other, one doctor to the other. The doctors did not know what it was. Anyway, eventually we went to a very high doctor in town. And the doctor said, look, he said he doesn't know what it is. The best is to go to Vilna. Vilna are the professors. They are the top experts who are there. Go there and see what's going on. So we went to Vilna, and we managed to see a professor. The professor did loads of tests on our child. And after the first time he did testing, he said, I don't know what it is. I can't work out what it is. He said, stay here for a few days. I've got to examine it again, do some more tests, and see what we can do. So that's what happened. He came back a few days later, did a few more tests. And afterwards, they were called in. And the professor said to them, sir, I've got some news to tell you. I don't know how to tell this to you, but your son has got a defect in his heart, which unfortunately we can't do anything about. There's nothing we can do. It's not repairable by us doctors. So of course they were heartbroken. They didn't know what to do. So they went back to their town. As they were going back to town, someone suggested to them when they were in the inn, they were obviously when they were staying, they were very, very sad. The innkeeper saw how sad they were. He said to them that, maybe on your way back, you should stop through Radin. Radin is a famous town where the Chofetz Chaim lives. Go to the Chofetz Chaim, see what he says. So they went along, they stopped in Radin, and they went along to the Chofetz Chaim's house. Now, at that time, the Chofetz Chaim was very old, really well into his 90s. And they knocked on his door, and they said that they'd like to have a consultation with the Chofetz Chaim, a bracha from the Chofetz Chaim. So the person at the door says, very sorry, but the Chofetz Chaim doesn't really give us a bracha. But then they realized that the person at the door realized that the husband was someone he had known from yeshiva. And he said, you know what? Come inside. I'll see if I can squeeze you inside. I don't know why he's been sleeping a lot. I don't know if we'll be able to give you a bracha, but we'll see what we can do. Bekitzer, after a while, the Chofetz Chaim woke up. And this was some relation, don't know what relation it was. He told the Chofetz Chaim the whole story. What's going on with these people, that they've got a child who's not well. Can the Chofetz Chaim give a bracha? The Chofetz Chaim didn't understand. And the Chofetz Chaim thought they want money from him. So the Chofetz Chaim said, I haven't got money to give. I'd love to help, but I said, I haven't got this. The person said, no, Rabbi. He said, that's not what we want. We want a bracha from the Chofetz Chaim. So Chofetz Chaim opened up his eyes. He looked at the woman, and he said to the Talmud, if I were to ask you if you could make Shabbos early every week, bring in Shabbos early every week. That means the house is not, running about everywhere. It's calm, and you're ready for the right time when Shabbos comes in. The different statements, how long before Shabbos came in, he asked for, but definitely a certain amount of time before Shabbos came in, that you should be ready, that the whole house should be ready, cleaned, and there's no running around before Shabbos comes in. Everything is b'menucha, calm. So the woman said, yeah, of course, if that's the bracha, I can make sure I've done. The Chofetz Chaim said, if you do that, I give you a bracha that your son will be healthy. That was it. They both went out, both happy with the bracha they got, and they went back to town. And the woman said, straight away we could see a change already in our son. His breathing was much better. So we took him back to our doctor. Our doctor examined him. The doctor said, you can't understand it. It looks like, I can't understand what's happened. This is what I'm saying over. He said, it looks like a major change in the boy. He said, in fact, I'm so impressed with it. He said, I'm going to pay for you to go for a ticket to Vilna, to go back to the professor and see what the professor says. They went back to Vilna, The captain said, this woman told him, and when the professor examined him, the professor, it's amazing, he says, after the person told him the whole story, obviously, the professor said that we can cure hearts, but we can't make new hearts. Looks like your rabbis can make hearts. So that was the scholar of keeping Shabbos, by a person accepting on a person to take on Shabbos, to be relaxed when Shabbos comes. I know it's very hard. It's always everyone's busy. It's always the last minute. People are busy. It's a funny thing, though, if you think about it. The winter and the summer, there's a big difference in times, but it's remarkable how it works. I say in the winter we manage at 3:30, 4:45, and the summer when it's 7:45, we don't always manage. It's hard. Yes, we always think, just reading an article from someone this week, actually, a very fascinating article. I can't find it again. I remember where it is. Someone was writing one of these magazines. He's an editor of one of these magazines. He said it's so interesting to know how many people complain about writers. He said every writer gets complaints, but he says compliments are very few actually. They don't get letters of compliments. So they had a meeting. They were trying to work out why is it that people complain but they don't compliment? It's a very good question. You know what the answer is? Actually, well, the interesting answer what it says. Yeah, it's a good question. Why is it that these people get complaints? They get very in proportion. The letters of complaint they get are much higher than the letters of compliment than they do. Which is a good question, I must say. I was speaking to someone today. Actually, he said to me the same thing. He said, he's a Balkari in a shul. He said very few people actually ever compliment him. There's something wrong with they come and compliment, but otherwise, very, very few people actually come along and compliment someone. So it's an amazing answer, actually, this editor. I must say, they sat down for a meeting. They wanted to work out what it was. Anyone got any ideas? Why is it that people complain, but they don't compliment?
Take a piece of white paper.
Yeah.
It's white, and there's one small black dot.
Right.
We said, what's on this paper? All they see is the little black dot.
But what's that? So you focus on why do we focus on the bad? I don't know. It's interesting. Why is it? So he said an amazing answer. I can't remember who it was the person, but he said an interesting answer. He said, I'll tell you what it is. When a person's upset about something, he gets agitated, he wants to put pen to paper. He's in a mood that is upset him. That makes him write. When someone's happy, he doesn't bother writing. He's not so happy that he's going to put pen to paper. He doesn't think like that. It's not right, really, because a lot of these people, he said, these people who are writing need compliments, actually. They don't get it. But it's an amazing thing, actually. I don't know how we got onto that, but that's what this idea of keeping Shabbos, being relaxed and, making sure that one accepts Shabbos nice and early. If one can do it, I say it's not easy to do. No one says it's easy to do. But if one can do that, one is doing the right thing. It's a special bracha, if one does that. So let's start with a few halachas of Shabbos. I want to discuss the halachas today of preparation for Shabbos. Few things to do with preparation of Shabbos. Some wet clothes. What the dinner is, someone told me that be quite relevant. Making a fruit salad and making egg and mayo, for example, on Shabbos. Yeah, a few of these things that maybe we'll discuss and see what we can come out with. Let's start with the beginning. So what's the first thing? Part of the honoring of Shabbos is that a person has, he cleans himself for Shabbos. He washes himself in hot water, ideally, his whole body. That's part of the honor of Shabbos. A person makes fresh for Shabbos. That makes a person feel good. And therefore, that's part of the thing to do. Cleaning the house, also, that's also part of Shabbos. The house should be respectable. It makes a whole nice atmosphere when the house is clean. So Chazal wanted the house to be clean. There should be calm in the house. And that's what one should do, really. One should try and make sure the house is set for Shabbos, a nice tablecloth that puts on anything which is nice. Many people have got different crockery set for Shabbos. Many people have got, of course, different clothes for Shabbos, which halacha says one should try and ideally have. One should have a special set of clothing for Shabbos, different to the weekday. So that's an honor of Shabbos. That is how one honors the Shabbos day, by making things different on Shabbos than one does during the rest of the week. All that is a chilek of honoring Shabbos. I say, if one can't have a wash, at the very least, the possible say one should do is your hands and your face. At least before Shabbos comes in, one should wash one's hands and face. That's the barest minimum. Okay. What else is there to be careful about? So people ask a question, which is, I don't know how many people, you're going to hotels, but sometimes people go to places away for Shabbos. Let's say people go on holidays. People sometimes go to hotels. I don't know. I don't experience this thing of going to hotels, but some people do. So in a hotel also, one has to prepare before Shabbos. Many things now in a hotel, for example, many of the places in hotels have got electronic cards to get in. You have to take an electronic card and put it into your door, and that opens the door. That's obviously a problem on Shabbos. So the only way around that is l'chora to ask for a room which doesn't have that. If one's stuck, maybe one can ask a non-Jew, but it's not ideal. Really not ideal. But at many hotels, you can ask for a room which is still used by a key. Others told me what they do is they leave the door open, but that's a bit risky already. I can't recommend that. It's a bit risky to leave the door open, no one can come in. But one has to be careful. A lot of these places, they're all electronically worked out. I mean, you go into the room, often the lights go on as soon as you walk in. You go out, the lights switch off. And some of these toilets also the same problem. When you get up, flushes. So these are all things one has to be aware of. That's all part of the preparation. Someone just told me now that he wants to go to a certain camp for the summer holidays. And he told me that they had to add an expense because in the places where they're going to, the room they've got, all the lights are electronic. So they had to pay for an electrician to come along and put a switch which you can deactivate all this. Yeah, all sensors. So whenever time a person walked in the corridor, the lights went off, which is problematic on Shabbos. So part of the honor of Shabbos is before I had to go to these places, look at what's going on. That's what he did. Person went and they had to pay for an electrician to come in and deactivate the whole system. They put a special switch in, which costs quite a bit of money, but that's all part of preparations of Shabbos, all part and parcel of it. Okay, so now let's talk about, let's say, for example, someone got something dirty on Erev Shabbos. And it's a garment that you need for Shabbos. So what you do is normal, you put it in the washing machine. It's washed. And now you look at your watch, it's getting quite close to Shabbos. So question number one is, can I put it in the dryer and let it run during Shabbos? And then it'll stop. Let's say it's a run, the dryer goes on for an hour. So let's say Shabbos comes in at 5 o'clock. At 4:30, I put it in. And it's going to run right through till 5:30, but at least my clothes will be nice and dry. Can I do that? That's not so simple because we hold that any machines that make a noise which can be heard by people in the house should not be operated on Shabbos. So dishwashers, hoovers, washing machines, all these machines should not be really running on Shabbos. They shouldn't be running on Shabbos. If one's mummish, that will ask a question, but generally speaking, the Protestants don't like these machines to be on. So if your washing is, is wet, when Shabbos comes in, then come to how wet it has to be, but then your garments are muksa. Any garment that's wet enough that if you were to squeeze it out, water would come out of it. So there's a danger you might do that on Shabbos, so we make that garment muksa. The truth is that most of the times when we do a wash, and you know better than I do, but you put clothes in the washing machine, normally it dries out, it's wrung out enough that you can't squeeze it. Is that correct? Unless you do what's called a wet spin. Well, when would you do a wet spin? When would you do it to make it still wet? You want it to crease or what? Yeah. So what clothes will you do to make it stay wet? Let's say you want to drip dry. Right, so in such a case like that, if the clothes are wet enough, it's still wet enough, those clothes are muksa. So if you hang it up on a washing line, for example, on the Erev Shabbos, you can't wear that on Shabbos. If when Shabbos comes in, it was wet, that you can't wear, then it becomes muksa the whole Shabbos. Once it's muksa when Shabbos comes in, it remains muksa the whole Shabbos generally. So if someone's got wet clothes, I mean, it can happen. I mean, someone got dressed early for Shabbos, and then they soiled it for some reason. They got it dirty. Someone came around, made it dirty, or they spilled something on it. So they want to wash it. So you have to be careful. If the clothes are still wet enough that water comes out of it when Shabbos comes in, I must explain to you what Shabbos comes in. We now in the summer make Shabbos very early, many people. Let's say, for example, now, Shabbos is probably, we take on the earliest time we can make Shabbos is Plaga Mincha, which if you look up, is about 7:45. Actually, Shabbos comes in much, much later, really. I mean, obviously, once you accept Shabbos, you can't do any malacha, but really, the laws of muksa are fixed at much later. They are fixed at sunset. So now, this time of year, I can't tell you exactly, but roughly, let's say we make Shabbos 7:45. Sunset probably is about 9:45. So as long as your garment is not wringing with water at 9:45, it's not muksa. In the winter, when we make Shabbos at 3:30, 4:45, that's close to sunset. That's 1/4 before sunset. So it depends what time of year you are. Some people even now make Shabbos very late. They wait to marry very late. But generally speaking, a lot of people make Shabbos early. So again, in order, if the garment's going to be muksa, it has to be muksa when it's sunset, during the course of sunset. So sunset now, this time of year, roughly is about 9:45 till about 11 o'clock. So if the garment is wet during that time, wet enough that water, if you would squeeze it, water would come out, then that garment is muksa and you can't wear it on Shabbos. So you've got it hanging somewhere, that's going to be a problem. The only case where it's allowed is even if it's very wet, but if it's on a radiator, for example. Now a radiator, you know, is going to make it dry. It's definitely going to become dry. So in that case, where you know it's going to become dry during the course of Shabbos, even though during the sunset it's not dry, but you know it's going to become dry during the course of Shabbos, you know that, then that's okay. If you hang your washing out in the garden, let's say, and it's very wet when Shabbos comes in, you don't know what's going to happen. It might rain. So you can't be guaranteed it's going to be dry tomorrow. But when you put it on a radiator and your radiator's on, then that's much better. And then that garment is not muksa. So that's what it depends on. So if your garment's muksa, you can't wear it on Shabbos. Someone's got a towel, for example, which got dirty, they want to wash it. If it was very wet, it was wet enough, but when you wring it out, it makes it, the juice comes out, water comes out, and you hang it in the garden, then you can't know it's going to become dry on Shabbos because it might rain. That garment remains muksa the whole of Shabbos. If, however, you put the towel on a radiator, and the radiator is going to come on Shabbos, then you know it's going to become dry. That's allowed. Okay, that's
It's not, if you put it on before Shabbos, and then it gets right only on Shabbos.
That's also okay. You know it's going to come on Shabbos, that's a radiator. But you know it's going to come.
You know.
That's right.
Even if it was dripping.
Yeah, because you know it's going to dry. You know that's like the Gemara says very interesting. I mean, it's a bit different to your case, but it's very similar. The Gemara says cholent very often. I mean, we don't do this, but sometimes cholent, when the sunset comes in some people's houses, not ready to eat. It might be raw. But even so, the Gemara says that's not muksa because you know it's going to cook over Shabbos. It's going to become edible when Shabbos morning comes. So that's okay. If you know it's going to become okay, it's a chiddush actually. Yeah, you're right. It's a chiddush actually. It's better to, because you're going to have problems sometimes with a blech and without blech. But strictly speaking, if you put your cholent on and you're not going to eat it tomorrow morning, you got, let's say, a blech there, then really it's okay. It's not a problem. Muksa, even though it's not edible to eat on Friday night. That's what you could do. So that's the cases of wet clothes. I'll tell you another case you could have had. Let's say, for example, let's say someone's clothes got dirty before Shabbos. They washed it and they put it in the dryer. And the dryer finished before Shabbos, but you didn't have a chance to take it out. Also no problem. Because since that garment was dry when Shabbos, before Shabbos came in, there's no problem at all. You could take out the dryer on Shabbos. There's no problem. The problem is, so the muksa is when it's muksa. Is it muksa to open the door? It's a good question. Now, is there a problem to open the door of the dryer? So that's an interesting question. And the answer to that question is that you're allowed to, because the dryer is called a cage issa. It's a degree of tumah, muksa, which you're allowed to move to get to. It's like a hammer to crack a nut. So if you have to open the door, you're allowed to open the door.
So that's dividing one thing and the boiler.
Yeah, I mean, you can have boiler, you can have a mixture of clothes, but if you want the one you want to wear, you know which one you're going to get. There's no problem either. So you can have 10 clothes in there, and you know which one you want, and that's the one you're going to take out. And you're going to wear it straight away. That's quite right. If you have on Shabbos, that you're going to wear it straight away, because you can't take it out on Friday night for Shabbos morning. But you could take it out on Friday night just before you wear it. Just before you want to wear the item, you could take it out and put it on, and that's it. That'd be another case of where you could wear it. Even if it goes in slightly to Shabbos, the dryer, I mean, it's not ideal. I mean, that's definitely better if it stops before, it's definitely better. But that would be a case of where wet clothes that one could have, that one could use on Shabbos itself. Because it was wet when Shabbos came in, you still use it, yeah.
If you have a raincoat, you get wet on Shabbos,
You can't put it near a radiator thing.
That's a good question. Actually, the range of question is what happens now. Let's see if someone gets caught in the rain and they're sopping wet. So that's the interesting halacha. Chazal didn't make any muksa on garment you're wearing. There's no muksa, but you're quite right. You can't put it near a heater because when you put it near a heater, that water is going to get cooked up. Even though you're not going to eat that water, it's going to evaporate. But that water is going to be evaporated, which is problematic. Who I did lachora is people shouldn't have towels in a bathroom on the radiator because people wash their hands are wet, the towel gets slightly damp, and now that it's on the radiator, it's going to dry it. That's not so good. It's better on Shabbos not to have the towel on the radiator, mamish. But yeah, you can't put it near a radiator. You shouldn't put the towel near the radiator because that's problematic. But the item does not become muksa, even though you might squeeze it out. Chazal didn't make a ban on that item, like you might squeeze it. Normally, an item becomes wet on Shabbos. If there's a danger, you might squeeze it. It becomes muksa actually, but not on clothes that you're wearing. Clothes that you're wearing do not become muksa.
I'm going to ask about the wet clothing.
Yeah.
You said if it's dripping wet, that becomes muksa if it's wet. But I like the wet. I like the wet clothes because they're very hot in there.
You like it when you like it.
So is that?
You like it.
I like it.
To wear it.
I like to put clothes on when they're wet.
Slightly down. You mean slightly down?
Yeah, slightly
Yeah, but
down.
not wring out. You can't wring the water out.
Yeah.
So if the clothes is not enough to wring it out, it's not muksa anyway. So in a normal washing, that's what I said to you, in a normal washing machine spin, as far as I know, I haven't tried it out at home, as far as I know, a normal washing machine, when you take out of the water, it should not drip. I say a normal washing machine, normally, but when you do a normal wash, the resulting clothes that come out are not wet enough to be able to wring out. So generally speaking, those clothes are not wet. So if you want to wear those clothes, no problem at all. But if you just do, sometimes some people might want to have the clothes very wet. They want to keep it wet and hang it out outside, let the water drip out. I don't know what it's called. What's it called again? Drip dry, let's say, right? So that means the clothes come out, stopping wet. That is the problem of muksa on Shabbos. So if someone wants to wear that, that would be problematic. If when Shabbos came in, that would be a problem. That would be a problem. Okay, that's the halachas of clothes, more or less, yeah? As far as I know, wet clothes. Let's talk about a fruit salad. That's a good question. Anyone makes fruit salad on Shabbos? I mean, it's always best, generally speaking, you save yourself a lot of problems, a lot of times to make all these before Shabbos. That's the truth. But sometimes, some people don't like making fruit salad, or some of them we're going to speak about because they say it gets a bit soggy, it's much better fresh. So we're going to talk about, let's say, making a fruit salad on Shabbos itself. So what does that involve? That involves, can anyone tell me what malachas are involved in making a fruit salad possibly? What possible hazards have you got that you've got to watch out for? Cutting can be a problem. Toichen, that's grinding. Anything else? Boira also, yeah. Squeezing is not so common. I don't you squeeze so many other things. But okay, let's talk about that as well. Okay, that's a good point actually. Okay, anything else? Right, the grinding. So one of the malachas is cutting very finely. So let's talk about boira first of all. So where is boira involved there? Boira is the peeling, believe it or not. Peeling the fruit itself is actually one of the lamates malachas of boira. But generally speaking, we know that boira is allowed near the mealtime. So a person wants to make a fruit salad, let's say, it takes half an hour to make. You want to have your meal at 12 o'clock. So the chayv itself that you could make your fruit salad at 11:30. So far, so good. That would avoid that problem. There's no problem with boira. You can peel wherever you have to peel. You can take out the pips of your peaches and your plums, the apricots, all that's okay to be done. That is mitzvah as well. Obviously, to make your fruit salad in the morning before you go to shul, let's say, that you can't do. That will be a problem. I know once someone told me, I said, they don't have this problem because what they do is before Shabbos, they put all the oranges in one pile, they put all the peaches in another pile, all the apples in another pile, all the grapes in another pile. So they've got no from a boira. Is that correct? It's not.
No.
Yeah, they didn't realize. It's very nice. They've got no mixture in the fruit bowl because they put all the fruit separately, but the peeling itself is problematic. When you peel your orange, it's boiras. That also has to be done near the mealtime. So it doesn't help to put your fruit in separate compartments. You with me? Yeah, very simple. That is mitzvah hilchos boira. So boira has to be done near to the time of eating. That's what you need to do. You have to do this. As I say it takes half an hour to make. So roughly 11:30, you eat at 12 o'clock. Roughly about 11:30, that is the time to start preparing your fruit salad. But then there's another problem, and that is the problem of grinding. Grinding is another one of the blocks. You mustn't cut items into small pieces. So that's a big question. What's called small? I mean, everyone agrees. You take an apple and cut it to 4 quarters. That's not called grinding. It has to be small enough that people call it small. And it's very possible to say every item of food you look at, cucumbers is one thing, tomatoes something else. Every food item you look at is what do people consider to be small. So let's say you want to make your fruit salad. So what happens to grinding? Well, how do you get around this problem? So the answer is that many opinions hold that grinding also has an allowance to make it near the mealtime. Just like boira is allowed near the mealtime, similarly, grinding is allowed near the mealtime. So again, if you make your grinding at 11:30, you do everything at 11:30, that's near your mealtime. It takes half an hour to repair, and you start doing it at 11:30, it takes half an hour till 12 o'clock, you want to start eating. That gets around the problem of boire and the problem of toichi. Just the Mishnah Berurah says, if you want to be extra strict, it's kedai to make the pieces slightly bigger than you would normally. Okay, that's a separate issue, but that gets around the problem of boire and toichi. And what you asked, what about squeezing? When you cut your grapes, so some juice comes out. So many poskim hold that's not a problem because that's not what you're intending to do. It's not definitely it's going to happen, first of all, especially if you use a sharp knife, and therefore most poskim hold there's no problem with cutting the fruits, and therefore you're allowed to cut it even though some juice might seep out. So that is your fruit salad. That's not your problem. What about a vegetable salad? Same thing. The only difference I saw today is interesting when I was preparing to say, why about a vegetable salad be a bit different? I didn't realize it actually. It's fucking interesting because I don't make vegetable salads. I don't know how it's made, but it seems that you put salt on vegetable salads. Is that true? So the problem there is that salting a food, a vegetable, is like tanning, which is not so good. So how do you get around that problem? It's also very simple. Very good. Yeah, if you add a bit of oil, for example, that weakens the power of salt. Yeah, I think you could. Yeah, I suppose you put salt. It's best to put oil in first, then you've got no problem at all. Okay, that's another problem. We'll cut that down. That's hopefully the next bit we're going to come to. Yeah, very good. Yeah. So again, quite clear with the fruits, fruit salad, vegetable salads. Very similar. I brought my thing over here, my little. Many people hold that cutting a cucumber. Everything out here was. Many people hold that. I'm not going to do it here, but let's say slicing a cucumber. Many poskim is also called toichen, even though it's not 3D. It's not dicing only. That's the problem with toichen. Cutting something very thinly into strips might also be called toichen. So someone takes, for example, carrots and he slices it very thinly. That's also toichen. If you do it near the mealtime, that's okay, but to do it earlier is not allowed. Again, one mustn't use a specialized instrument in this thing. When you're slicing anything, even if it's near the mealtime, you cannot use a specialized instrument. You can't use a grater, a shredder, anything which is specialized you can't use. Except when you're using eggs. Eggs is different because eggs is not the problem with toichen. I mean, you can use an egg slicer or a cheese slicer. That's all that's allowed. But other than that, no other graters are allowed to be used. Okay, so that is how you make your fruit salad on Shabbos, or your vegetable salad. Again, you do it near the mealtime. That covers you for the malacha of boirer and the malacha of toichen near the mealtime.
So it's a finish about the toichen. So let's say you want to, I want to have an apple, right?
You want to have a?
Have an apple, and I want to slice it very thin. I'm getting it now, so I can't do it
with a knife. With a knife.
With a knife, yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that.
See, it's got in your cake, see?
Yeah.
Yeah, that you can do it. So the Mishnah Berurah just says, because not everyone agrees to this opinion. I mean, the Meister Ramah says, okay, it's definitely the main halacha of this. The Mishnah Berurah just says, it's better if you can, you don't have to. It's a thing, if you can make it slightly bigger than you would normally when you slice it. You with me?
Yeah.
You don't have to. I'm saying the Ramah, that's really what we follow. He says that the same answer that applies to boira of near the mealtime also applies to toichen. Sorry? Yeah, or peeling. I mean, anybody wants to select an apple from a fruit bowl, you have to do it in the mealtime. Even not only peeling, but any boiler that you do is allowed near the mealtime. Yeah, you want to take an apple from a fruit bowl, it's a whole mixture there of apples, oranges, peaches, and pears, anything there. You take it near the mealtime, you're allowed to do it. Provided you take it with your hand, you take the good what you want, and you're going to use it straight away. Those are 3 conditions. So yeah, cutting up is like interesting. Yeah, if you do it, some of us should more holes. That's more. Yeah.
The stomach must always apply to food, or I mean, to actually, or does it also apply to actually using it? As you said, if you choose, if you want to wear something tomorrow, into a mess.
In Boira,
Yeah.
applies to that as well.
Yeah.
So you want to wear, someone wants to wear a dress, the marshal. Someone wants to wear a dress, the marshal.
Not just Suda, like, so as I said before about the shore, you're not allowed to make your food sound before you go to shore.
Correct.
But you could say in some because I need to go to shore.
Yeah, but that's not called someone. That's not enough. But for your own convenience, that's not called someone's other. That's you're quite right, but that's possible. That's not called someone's other. Someone's other to be near to its use. The fact that it's convenient for you, that's no question. Like, you want to go to shul, you want to go to shul at 9:30. You come back at 12:15. You want to eat at 12 o'clock. You haven't got time when you come back. That's your own inconvenience. You're right. That's a problem. That's not a healthy. Okay. The next part is losh. Now this is a bit of a tricky one. Losh. Losh is the malacha of binding small things together. Could be any way. It could be with a liquid, let's say with oil. It could be with marge, something which is sticky. Can anyone give me an example of losh? Where does losh apply on Shabbos?
Mayonnaise.
Onto what? Oh, so first I want to tell you, but it has to be small pieces. Big pieces is not called losh. Someone makes a corn salad on Shabbos, there's no losh. It has to be small pieces that bind together. I mean, the Gemara's example. So the egg might be an example. Yeah, cut up finely. Egg cut up finely might be a problem. Wheat is also a problem. Yeah, wheat also binds together. What else is that? Tuna, something that's cut up finely. You mix it. That could be problematic. Potato salad generally, I don't see how many different salads there are, but generally speaking, potato salad is quite big pieces normally. So there's no losh bind. There's no issue of binding the potatoes together. Binding is you bind small pieces together. So oat cereal, wheat cereal, these cereals can be a problem. I mean, there are ways of doing it. I can't go to the whole lot of losh over here. There are ways of doing it, but I want to talk about now a person wants to make egg and onion on Shabbos. Now, you probably know better than I do. There's various different ways of making egg and onion on Shabbos, correct? But first of all, why does the person not want to make it before Shabbos? Well, that's before that. Can anyone tell what malachas are involved in making egg and onion on Shabbos? What would you have to be careful about? Losh is one. What else? Salt, maybe onions, maybe. Yeah. What else? Boira is number 2. What else? Mashing. Toikens. You've got a few malachas that you have to be careful with, right? So I'm saying it's ideal to make it before Shabbos. There are some people who've got a minig, Hasidim in general, make it on Shabbos itself. They hold a big Indian to show how it works. Also, they don't like leaving egg overnight, even though it's mixed with other things. They like to make it fresh on Shabbos. So let's talk about losh. So boira and toichen you can get around quite easily if you do it in the mealtime.
So I thought toichen does apply to eggs.
Quite right, very good. The toichen does not apply to eggs, it's not going to be kaka, but let's say the onions. So you've got the onions in there, quite right, yes, correct. So the eggs and the onions, which you want to mash up, you've got boira and toichen on the onions, boira on the eggs, and peeling the onions is boira and toichen. So now you store it loud because it's in the mealtime, no problem. But what about mixing it? Can you mix it with your egg on Shabbos? Now, generally speaking, when a person makes, or oil is the same problem actually, yeah? Maybe not, but oil passes the same problem because what's happening is you cut the egg out. I'm going to show you an example over here. You don't mind sort of a bit of egg, do you? I'll show you 2 examples here.
You just tell them on Zoom what you're doing.
No, I don't have to do that. How do I do that? Right, I'm going to cut the ash. I'm going to show you 2 examples. Let me just take one thing over here first. Cut this egg first. Right, so this is my egg over here. Now, what I want to do is I want to mash it up and pour some mayo on it. Is that a problem?
Yeah.
Right, so what happens is Let's mash up. I'm going to mash up. We can mash up normally. Nothing wrong with token. Like you say, on eggs, there's no problem with grinding. So I'll mash up my eggs like normal. Oh, sorry about that. Can't be eggy your computer.
You just tell them what you're doing.
I'm just mashing up some egg over here. So I have to show it to you. Here, I'm mashing up some egg. Right, so far so good or not?
Yeah.
Right. Now there's two other options I've got. One option is to pour some oil or a very runny mayo into it. If I do that, that's problematic, because what happens is when I pour a runny mayo or oil into it, it sticks. That is losh. That is the problem on Shabbos. Agreed? So how do I make it on Shabbos? Now, someone told me, which is an interesting point, I just want to mention this, I think it's a good point what he says. And he said to me that sometimes, I don't do this, but sometimes people do this, they put a small amount of oil with the egg just to make it not so dry, but they're not really binding it. That means if you lift the egg up, it would fall apart. It's not really binding the egg together. It's just a small amount, he said to me, just to make it not so dry. That could be, I don't know, that could be, that's not losh. Maybe. But if you put quite a bit on and you bind it together, which I think many people do, that's a problem of losh. So how do you get around this? Now, let's start with the other way around first of all. If I use this mayo over here, this is a thick mayo, yeah? Now you must realize I'm pouring this, I haven't got so much. Can you see the mayo onto this egg? Has it mixed? No, thick mayo doesn't mix. So at this present stage, I've done nothing wrong. At this stage, when I put the thick mayo on the egg, there's no blending together. It has not bound together. There was no problem. Now I can do a mixing in a funny way, without going into too many details. If I mix it, it's called chassis ve'ero. If I do it criss-cross, 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 criss-cross. Some say shake out every time, some say you can leave it in. But if I mix it like this, it's getting already a mixture. That is a way to make it on Shabbos without a problem. Yeah, I could be with this, but I could use anything actually.
Oh, no,
Yeah, no, that's just more convenient. But I could do it with the front as well actually. You could do it with the front. You could do it any way you want. Crisscross. So some say shake out every time in between one and the other. Others say you can leave it in, but you must do different actions: horizontal, vertical, horizontal, vertical. That way it mixes together. It's an abnormal way to make a losh, a thick mixture in this way is permitted. That will be one way of making this on Shabbos. Yeah. If you want to use a runny mayo or oil, that's much worse. So I'm not going to show you how to do it, but I haven't got another plate. But what you do in that case is you put the egg in like this first into your plate. Oh, sorry, you put oil first into your plate. Oil first into your plate. Then you put this egg onto the oil. Has it done losh yet? No, no losh. Then you mix it in an abnormal way. You take the back of a fork and you crush it up. That in an abnormal way helps with this. No. But how much do you want to cut up to? Not very thin, not small pieces. You cut it to quarters, let's say.
Small.
What?
Not terribly small.
Yeah, you could cut it into quarters probably. That's not called losh.
I see, but you do it smaller than that, then you can't.
No, it's a binder it then, yeah. So you have to do the mixing has to be in an abnormal way. It's a very strange case over here because you're using a runny liquid, which is problematic. So you have to make the blending occur in an abnormal way. That is done by mixing it in an abnormal way when it mixes with the oil. Everyone with me?
So you can have your small pieces of egg down it. The oil is in.
Oil is in. You put the egg in. Small piece of egg in.
Small pieces of the onion. No, I mean,
Well, onion also binds together. But if it's very small pieces, it also bind together. So it'll also be a problem.
yeah.
And you can mix that all together with when you crush it in an abnormal way. So as soon as it gets small, it's blending with the oil in a very abnormal way. That is a special allowance to make this mixture on Shabbos. That will be the way to make it on Shabbos. Those are the two ways. Again, if you're making a thick mixture, so you can crush up the egg like normal, yeah, and you put the mayo on top of the thick mixture, it doesn't blend straight away, there's no problem. And then afterwards, you mix it in horizontal, vertical. If you're using a runny mixture, so if you have the egg already crushed up and you pour your oil, your runny oil or your runny mayo on it, it blends straight away. That's no good. So we have to make a major change. So you put your egg slices in, which are not so small, that don't bind together. Then you put your oil in first, you put the egg pieces and your onions on top, and then you mash up the egg in an abnormal way, the back of a knife or the back of a spoon, back of a fork. That's completely not normal. That will be a way of making this on Shabbos.
Not with a knife.
What, cut it up with a knife normally? You can't use a knife normally to cut it up.
Right.
You'll have to cut it up in an abnormal way. So use the back of a handle of a knife or a fork. That's what you'll have to do. Okay, that is, let's solve the malacha of Losh. How we're doing the time. Oh, it's right later already. So let's just finish off this one about colouring. Yeah, so far so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's what you do. I'm just trying to think what else. I'm saying corn salad. Many of these salads are not problematic on Shabbos. I'm saying a lot of these salads are not problematic. Something what else can be a problem on Shabbos? I mean, coffee and tea obviously no problem because it dissolves. It doesn't blend. It doesn't bind together. Someone just asked me yesterday. Actually, interesting. He just said to me yesterday. I was talking about what? Okay. Some sort of paste he wants to make. I don't know what it was. Mum's interesting question. Mum's Losh on Shabbos is making a paste. I forgot what the case was, but I don't know what it was. He asked if we can make it on Shabbos. It's very problematic. It's Mum's a paste. Anyway, I mean, the possible speak about it, but I haven't got it, but some people have got a tooth that comes out. And what they do is they make a glue every day to take out when they go to sleep. And on the morning, they make you take some powder and a bit of water, you mix it together, it becomes like a glue. You dip the end of the tooth into it, it becomes sticky, you stick it into your gum. That's the problem of Losh. That binds it together, it becomes bonded together, that powder, that paste, that is problematic with Shabbos. I don't know what his case was yesterday. Well, I mean, in the Orcha Shabbos, I couldn't find it. Maybe someone knows what it is. I don't know. He speaks about a food item like this, that you put it into your mouth as a powder, and it blends with the saliva, and it becomes like a paste. I don't know what it is. I asked someone in Havens, he didn't know what it was talking about. So they don't have, as far as he knows, they don't have it.
Sherbet, maybe?
But sherbet dissolves, I think. Does it stick together? It dissolves.
Till it dissolves.
Which means it binds together, little bits tying together, possibly. I don't know. Right, let's come on to the Malachot Tzaveh, colouring. So the Moshe Letzon wants to put makeup on. So funnily enough, even though it's the Malachot in Torah colouring, but a person who colours themselves is never awesome in Torah. It's not scripturally forbidden. The reason being, many reasons given. The basic reason is that first, it doesn't last very long. It wears off after a while, makeup. And second of all, it's that the body is so perfect as it is. That change that a person does by putting makeup on is insignificant to the body. The body is such a major achievement. To kind of put lipstick on, or whatever it is, something on there which colors the body is considered a small change in such a major thing. So therefore, it's never allowed. It's never forbidden. But it doesn't make much of a difference. Rabbinically, it's forbidden. So where would this be relevant? What's the person going to do? So obviously, let's say something like lipstick. To put on oneself lipstick, I wrote down a few things over here. To apply an artificial tan. I've never heard that before, actually, but what you want to do is you want to make yourself a bit browner, so you can get some sort of cream, or not cream's anyway problem, but even if it's liquidy. Anyone know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah? And what, it's a liquid?
It's liquid.
And it makes you brown? Really? How does it
For
last?
a while.
How long for?
For quite long.
Really? It's interesting what I come out with. Okay, very interesting. So you colour yourself. That's not allowed on Shabbos. To do that on Shabbos is not allowed. That's called tzaveh. That's called colouring. Even if someone's got a spot and he wants to conceal the spot, so he's got some, what's it called, a spot
Concealer.
a spot concealer, very good. Yeah, spot concealer. That also can't be used. That's colouring that part of the skin. So all of these things which you're doing can't be used. This is very interesting, actually. I haven't seen it around for a while. Such a thing called makeup you can put on Shabbos. Has anyone seen this before?
It does exist.
It does exist. I've tried to get hold of it. Very, very interesting thing how it works, actually.
everlasting. You put it on Friday.
That's a good idea. That you can get such a that's definitely what you can get makeup which a person can put on Friday. It lasts for 24 hours. That's no problem at all. But there are some makeups that are advertised that you can put them on Shabbos itself. Now that's not so simple. That's not one's own role. This is very problematic. Originally, some poskim allowed this because they held Moshe Feinstein was apparently rumored to say this was okay, based on the fact that it had no oil in it. It was just like a very flimsy coloring, so much so that if you wipe your hand, it will come off. So they held, or Moshe held, and others held that it's so flimsy that it does no lasting effect whatsoever. Horaya, you just put your hand on it, it wipes it off. That's not called a lasting thing, that's nothing. Nowadays, though, this is much more problematic because most of them are oil-based and they don't come off so easily. And therefore, it's very hard to find anyone who allows these sorts of makeup to be done on Shabbos. I'm not saying no one does. I've tried to speak to someone. There was a Rob, actually, who I spoke to. He gave a hechsher originally on makeup, but he said he took it off afterwards. It was misused, he said, this heter, and people misunderstood it, so he took his hechsher off. He didn't know it anymore. So one has to be careful about this makeup business. I'm saying it can be embarrassing for a woman. A woman is used to making up every day, and there was some reason she could put on Friday, so she might be embarrassed. But that's really part of the honoring of Shabbos sometimes. You know, the honoring of Shabbos is, like we spoke at the beginning, the honoring of Shabbos is not only on Friday, but on Shabbos, if one can't do something, one shouldn't do it. So ideally, one should refrain from this sort of thing. If one needs to have makeup on, then one should get this makeup which lasts for a long time. You can buy this makeup, I think it's still for sale as far as I know, which is, they say it lasts for a bit of time, and therefore that will be allowed to be used. But to put makeup on Shabbos itself is not so simple. Not really not simple. Taking off makeup actually is very interesting, is no problem. The whole issa of Tzeveah does not have a counter malacha to it. Kosev writing has a counter malacha to it, and erasing. What do you call it though? But Tzeveah coloring does not have a counter malacha to it. So if someone's got nail varnish, for example, on their fingers, and then for some reason on Shabbos it doesn't look very nice, they feel it's not very good, doesn't look very pleasant, they want to take it off. Strictly speaking, there's nothing wrong. The only thing, what you have to be careful when you take it off. Yeah, so you mustn't make a cloth wet and rub it off because you're going to be squeezing the cloth. I don't know how you can do it, but if there's a way of doing it without this, you can rub it on your finger, on your nail, with your hand, or whatever, that's no problem, Taka. Or someone wants to remove makeup from their face, washing their face, that's Taka, no problem. The only problem is when a person does schita, taking off makeup, and it involves a schita, involves squeezing out, the cloth gets wet. And because it's wet, some liquid's going to come out, that's problematic. Okay? Coloring eyes, spot concealer, all these things are problematic. Varnishing nails, yeah? Coloring eyes, all these things are the malach of Tzeveah. Any part of the body that's colored is the malach of Tzeveah. So one has to avoid this really on Shabbos. The only thing one can do is really, even touching up is a problem. Let's say someone's got lipstick on already before Shabbos, and then on Shabbos morning, look in the mirror and say, oh, it's to do with a top up, you know, polish it up a bit. That's also called Tzeveah. Brightening something is also called Tzeveah. Mishnah speaks about polishing shoes. Even though the shoes are black, but to put a polish on it, which makes it even more blacker, it makes it shine a bit, that's called Tzeveah. So all these things of coloring, really, there's not much to speak about coloring. There's not really much you can do. I'm just trying to think where you can do it. You can't really do it. The only thing you can do is to put it on before Shabbos. That's really the only, what do you think you can do? Face powder, rouge, blush foundation, all these things are problematic to do on Shabbos. Yeah. There is such a thing as well, what's interesting about what's it called, a disclosing tablet, which you put on your teeth, and it shows you, it colors the teeth, which needs to be brushed. That's also problematic, because that you want that color. You're doing that coloring in order to show you what to brush. So besides the problem of brushing one's teeth, that's one thing. But besides all that, there's a problem of you're doing a coloring over here. You want the color to come out. So that's also not really.
If you can't brush your teeth on Shabbos, why would you do it?
First of all, you can buy a toothbrush that's much to use on Shabbos. They're selling in the shops toothbrushes that are allowed to be used on Shabbos. They've got rubber things on it, and they're spaced out, so there's no problem with sleep. So you can do that. Also, even if a person wants to do it with his finger, let's say he wants to clean with his finger, that's also not allowed to be done.
You're not allowed to clean the
No, you
finger.
can, but not for this. You can't discolor your teeth to know where to clean. This shows you what bit needs to be cleaned. So you mustn't put this discoloring color over here to show you what bit you can do with your fingers. That mustn't do. That's called Tzeveah. Let's make a quick resume of what we learned. So we spoke about at the beginning over here, the chashivas of keeping Shabbos, that whoever keeps Shabbos kil chosei, he gets his avera is forgiven. It's a remarkable thing, actually. A person thinks about that. Tremendous scholar. Then we spoke about the idea of honoring Shabbos. It's a special thing. It shows the love of Shabbos. Even though we're not mechuyev to do it, but we go out of our way to honor Shabbos, make the table, make the place nice, looks all honorable. That is a special thing to do. And then we spoke about the story of a person from the Chofetz Chaim got a special bracha that they keep Shabbos early. They're relaxed when Shabbos comes in. They're not running into the last moment. When Shabbos comes, there's still, there's what do you call it? There's a nice, serene atmosphere in the house. That's also a very special thing. Then we spoke about wet towels or wet clothes. So we said, generally speaking, when it comes out of the washing machine, it's not muksa, generally speaking, because they're dried enough in the washing machine not to make it a problem of muksa. But if it was wet enough that if you squeeze it, it would come out, then that item is muksa. If it's wet during Ben Hashmoshes, during the sunset period. But if you put it onto a radiator where you know it's going to become dry during the course of Shabbos, that's not muksa, even in those cases. We spoke about a fruit salad, how to make it, got a problem with toichen and boira, so all that's allowed to do it in the mealtime. And some say you should make it slightly bigger when you do this. We spoke about the vegetable salads. Some people put oil on to stop the salt having an effect. And we spoke about losh, egg and mayo. We spoke about when you make egg and mayo. So if you're using a thick binder, like thick mayo, then you make the egg cut out like normal, grind it up, very small pieces. You put the mayo on top, sits on it without mixing. And then you mix it with horizontal and vertical movements. If it's a runny mayo or oil, which is very runny, then you have to cut the egg into quarters, let's say, not into very fine pieces. Put the oil in first, put the egg on top, and you mash the egg in an abnormal way, the back of a knife or the back of a spoon. So the losh and the toichen are happening at the same time in an abnormal way. Sorry? Not a normal way, not with a normal, not the front of a knife. That's normal. You have to make a change.
In the pot.
Yeah, you can't use that. You have to do a change. Use the back of the knife. Abnormal way of doing it. That's okay. And then we talk about what do you call it? We spoke about coloring. The makeup. A lot of these makeups are problematic on Shabbos because they're coloring a person. Artificial tanning, lipstick, rouge, all these things, eye coloring, all these things are problematic on Shabbos. One should not do these things on Shabbos. Okay, Rabbi Wesibart? Thank you. Any questions before we stop?
Can I start off on related to Shabbos?
Yeah. Your hot plate?
My hot plate goes, I have it on a time switch, it goes off.
Yeah.
So am I allowed to put something went off, I know it's going to go on, directly on the hot plate? Like,
Let's see, you want a challah to be hot, let's say.
Or some fish. Am I allowed to put directly or do I have to put it on top of a...
That's about like some say you can put it straight on. It's dry, a dry item, not wet item. Dry item.
The fish is a bit wet.
You put a dry item. A dry item. Some say you can put it straight on. Others say you should put a gap of something in between. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, before you go, I'd like to thank you very much and to announce that